the core concept of punishment being effective and not being scared of using very firm punishment in very particular, specific, fair instances, you're never going to convince me that that's wrong. It works. It works darn well. Hey guys, welcome back to our podcast.
Hey, it's been a while.
It has been a while.
A long while.
There's been a lot going on.
You know, there has been. We've been busy training dogs, doing sessions, doing lessons, all of the above.
It's true. The podcast takes a back seat to all that, unfortunately.
Yes, yeah.
If I need to schedule a lesson over it, I will.
Yeah. I think we get a lot of comments, repeated comments. They're like, if you guys just didn't sit around and talk on your podcast and train dogs. We out here.
Trust us. We are training dogs out here.
Yeah.
Bridget, open us up. What do we want to talk about today?
So I just wanted to kind of have a detailed discussion with another trainer about that box of chocolates right now.
Amazing.
Eleanor. What was I saying? Oh, okay. The topic.
Sorry.
Yeah. Eleanor, what?
Eleanor, shut the fuck up.
Eleanor. I had this idea. I've had this happen to me pretty recently where dogs that we've trained in the past that went home, super great. We did the follow-up support. We supported the owner as much as they needed, throughout time. And we've done our due diligence on their ends. It's like when it's the ball, okay. The ball is in the client's court and you can no longer really help them or serve them because they're not doing what you asked them to do. And they're expecting you would have a magic answer.
Yeah.
I've ran into two situations like that. And I just kind of want to discuss why it happens. And if you're in that predicament, how you could start to handle some of that on your own.
Yeah. I think that because we talk a lot about, obviously, that we really don't owner shame. We try our best to make sure that we're not blaming the owner and being well, it's your fault. This is why your dog is like this. You did everything wrong and blah, 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 blah. I'd say the only situation truly where you can be okay, I have tried my darndest and I truly can't do anything until you actively start to participate is when you're giving them solutions or techniques or methods or things that need to be done and they just don't do it. That's the only time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If it's a situation where the owner is executing what you're asking and again, there's definitely something to be said for if they're struggling to execute what you're asking, maybe you can find an easier way for them to do something that you're trying to accomplish or, whittling it down to the bare bones of how simple can I make this so that you can be successful. But if it truly just comes down to them not wanting to implement the corrections or the boundaries or the techniques or them continuing to maybe expect their dog to be a different dog than the dog that they have, then there's not really a whole lot that the trainers can do at that point.
And there's people that are really stuck in that, not many of our clients, but we've run into a few that are really stuck on the idea of what they'd want their dog to be.
Yeah.
And that's all that they can think of. It's tunnel vision. And they're like, why aren't you helping me do this? And you're like, I'm trying, but I'm also trying to be logical in saying that your dog that has a bite history should not be out around your nieces and nephews.
Yes. Yeah.
And people are like, but he's going to feel sad. What happens? You just have to be realistic, and sometimes you tell them over and over and over again, and they have to learn for themselves. But
yeah,
it's hard sometimes.
It's I don't know, in those situations, examples that I've given people are the way you are the dog that you have versus the dog that you want, and you think that we can somehow make it into that is saying that oh, I want to take a bowler and make them an NFL player. It's literally impossible. a completely different set of genetics.
Yeah.
Like, it's not going to happen. You know, you can't take somebody who's a swimmer and then be like, okay, now I want you to be a 300-pound linebacker.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it's just, it's completely different. So your dog is going to be who they are, and you can do a lot with training, and we do a lot with training, but there's always going to be certain limitations dependent on their personalities and their temperaments and things like that.
I think it's good to like do your research and make sure that you're working with a trainer that you trust, and like, you know, look at many areas of your life, but you really have to be honest with yourself at some point and be like, what could I be doing differently that's contributing to the situation that I don't like? So,
or, you know, and I think another angle of kind of what you're bringing up is that maybe there is ways that we can change what they want to change about the dog. Sorry, the pneumonia got to me a few weeks ago. But they're not willing to do what we're saying they have to do to change it. You know? So I had a client I'm working with currently. And it was funny because we've maybe done a few sessions, and I was having them correct him pretty firmly for a couple behaviors that they needed to, you know, get under control. And this week, you know, I think this was our third session. You know, prior to this, they came back and they were like, it's a little better. It was like window reactivity, and specifically a situation where the dog is like, if it's outside and there's kids waiting for their bus stop, he's just going nuts at the fence, right? And I told him that you need to correct that dog like at a very specific level. And each week they'd come back and be like, it's a little better. It's a little better. It's a little better. And in my head, I'm like, if they were doing what I was telling them to do, like with the level that I was having them correct at, it would be a lot better.
Yes.
Like, it would be a very drastic change. And this week they were like, because each week then I was having them increase. You know, I was like, okay, well, if you're truly correcting at that level and it's not effective, now I'm going to have you do it at this level, you know, and I'm adjusting my plan, assuming that they were kind of doing the plan at home, and I was making adjustments to it. And then this week they were kind of like, we're going to be honest, we haven't really been doing exactly what you said. And the reason they think they finally brought it up to me in an honest way was because we had like a very good breakthrough moment in the session with handling. And with his nails and stuff like that. And while those things are unrelated, it gained rapport for me. They were like, oh, no one's been able to touch his feet in years, and you're doing his nails in an hour.
Yeah.
Maybe we should listen to the advice that you're giving us. And they've been incredible. And I'm very happy that they were honest with me. And that's a big key to this, is that if you're not doing what the trainer is asking you to do, please don't try to be like covert about it, because that's even worse than just not being upfront, because then I'm trying to come up with alternatives of, okay, so if this isn't working for their situation, why don't we try these things or these things? And in my head, I'm going through my Rolodex of like different options, but in reality, we're not actually testing those options to the full capability. Because they're not being executed at home. And so I think that in that situation, they got a little bit of a different perspective, where they were like, I see now why this application is going to work very well for him. And they were a little bit more on board with it afterwards.
It's like, we talked about in a trainers meeting a couple weeks ago, like we're just talking about like some low level e-collar trainers versus like actually utilizing a level that works for the dog in the moment. And we were discussing like how there's this promise of like low levels will never go above a 10, will never go above a 30, and how ineffective that is. And like, you're just kind of shooting yourself in the foot and having your client not get success with things because you refuse on an emotional level to correct the dog at something that it cares about for that specific behavior. So, and it's hard to come to grips with what for some people is to correct a little bit higher. But like you always say, I'd rather not correct you at all. But I have to correct you so I don't have to correct you.
100%. And like, I think the focus a lot of times is on the emotional state of the dog. And sure, like if a dog is struggling and they're behaving a certain way because they're scared of something or there's a lack of confidence, like I do want them to have a more positive association with it and be more confident. But the issue is that I can't start changing their opinion on it until I tell them what they're not allowed to do.
Yeah.
And like, I have to get to a baseline area. So I can't start getting you to like having me touch your feet until you stop trying to bite me for touching your feet.
Yeah.
And I can't teach you that the children waiting at the bus stop aren't a threat and have you be okay with them there until I get you to stop attacking the fence and barking at them. Like, you have to stop the behaviors first before you can start, like, you know, creating the positive associations.
Yeah. And you don't have to teach your dog anything to stop a behavior. Like, it's not like the e-collar has to be used in a very specific way. It can be used in many different ways that are successful. And I could put an e-collar on a dog tomorrow that's never had one on and start correcting for like really insane behaviors and start to just tackle one behavior at a time rather than when we send them home initially on their first e-collar session. I'm like, pick one or two things, and we're not going to micromanage the dog all week and have them be like, what's happening to me?
Yep.
So just chipping away at it.
Yeah, it's not as convoluted as people might want you to think it is.
Yeah.
Like, again, you can have as long as you understand timing and like markers, you can easily put an e-collar on a dog, never teach them any obedience, and fix a lot of behavioral issues with that. And unfortunately, I think trainers make it way too complicated. I don't know if it's an ego thing that they make it really complicated. I don't know if they truly think it has to be that complicated. I don't know.
It's confusing because there's so much information out there, like on both sides, force-free community and the balanced training community, and even within both of those communities, everybody does it so differently.
Yeah.
And they could pick a fight with each other and be like, you're not supposed to do it this way. So you just have to find somebody that like it speaks to you.
Yeah. And like
sense.
The ways that I go about things, like I know it works. Like I don't look at my history of training dogs, especially I would say like I felt most confident probably year 7. Year 7 of training dogs. I was like, okay, I feel like I have a pretty good understanding of like who I am as a dog trainer. I've interacted with thousands of dogs. I've seen what works, I've seen what doesn't work. I've seen the fallout, you know, of certain behavior, like certain whatever. And like, once I hit that point, I was like, okay, I feel very confident in like how I train and what I do with dogs. And so it doesn't bother me when I see people being like, oh, you correct dogs at 100. Yeah, I do correct dogs at 100 and it works.
Yeah.
And then I don't have to do it again. Like I don't see what everyone's, it feels like I'm living in like a like there's like everyone around me is so diluted where they're trying to tell me that reality is completely different from what I'm seeing. I'm being gaslit by people on the internet telling me I don't know how to train a dog and it doesn't work because I literally see it every single day that it does work.
Yeah, and the people that say that like train Skippy, their own dog and maybe their parents' dog, and just like you don't have the level of like hands-on experience that some people that are in and out of this every day do. I
have 30 to 35 clients at a time. I do like 9 lessons a day.
Yeah. So you think you'd get pretty good at that. You know?
Like I see, and it's not even that I'm like, oh, I'm such a good dog trainer. I have so many. It's more so that like if my techniques weren't working, there would be masses of people screaming it from the rooftops because of how many people I interact with and how many dogs I train. Like, you wouldn't have to convince me I'm a bad dog trainer. I would fucking know.
Yeah.
Like, everyone would tell me.
You're having issues with your clients, especially because that truly is the only thing that matters in the dog training industry, is the relationship you have with your clients and like how happy they are and the success that they've seen. So all of the like opinions can be muted out from there, and you can start to become confident and comfortable with the way that you personally handle things.
Yeah. And I have so many clients that are repeat clients.
Yeah.
They're bringing their second dog to me now. They're puppies. They're, you know what I mean? So like, I just don't see it. I don't see it.
It's like a dirty word, like 100 on the e-collar.
Yeah, right.
Like not every single dog.
Try it once.
Yeah, not every single dog needs.
You might be surprised how effective it's going to be.
Like really high levels, but it's very effective.
Oh, it's extremely effective. If you have a dog who loses their ever-loving mind when they see people outside and you're sick of it, correct him at 100 on an e-collar consistently for a week.
That behavior is gone.
You will be shocked at the response that you're going to get. And I guarantee you, your dog's behavior overall is going to improve. Yeah. Not even just in that area.
And people are always like, one thing I get all the time, which I'm sure you do too, is like, my dog is so much calmer after, you know, the training program.
But it's learned helplessness, Bridget.
Yeah.
They're just learned helplessness. No, it's called the dog understands that like there's rules and there's accountability and there's boundaries, and they can finally relax because they know that's not their job.
But they're masking. They're not actually relaxing.
They're not relaxed.
We just are telling them.
The snoozing on the couch isn't indicative of...
Do you like, people really don't think that they're a dog's owner who knows the dog the best and spends the most time with the dog? Like, if we were seeing the dog's personalities change or fallout happening, you don't think that we'd hear about that?
I've only ever had clients tell me that their dog is more affectionate, that their dog is happier, their dog's more relaxed, their dog... I don't see it. You'll never be able to convince me that what I'm doing is wrong. Like, I don't... It's not going to happen. Obviously, there's always room to grow and learn and things like that. But the core concept of punishment being effective and not being scared of using very firm punishment in very particular, specific, fair instances, you're never going to convince me that that's wrong. It works. It works darn well.
It does. You just have to look at like being real with yourself and your situation and saying like, what's holding you back from having the life that you want with your dog? And is it you, or is it changing your expectations of what you want your dog to be like?
Because honestly, I think when it's really come down to it, though, I would say that concept is probably the most common issue that we run into when we do hit a wall with people where they're like, well, it's not working, and I want this to change and this to fix, but our recommendations are generally, you know, enforcing some kind of strict boundary like that, and they just can't do it.
Yeah. And that's what's holding them back. And like, I even had a client that did our board and train program. We helped her countless times. We saw a lot of success in the dog. The dog's obedience is great. The dog's behavioral issues were great. And then he started kind of regressing because of their lack of consistency. And she said something like, oh, well, I emailed Cesar Millan, like, to see if Cesar Millan could help me. Like, you keep just like trainer hopping because you're not happy with like the answers people are giving you.
Yeah. And I mean, Cesar's not going to tell you anything.
Have you watched Cesar Millan unedited?
Yeah. I mean, and don't get me wrong, I think he's great.
Yes, he is.
But
great.
He's not a softer version of what we do. I mean, if like anything, he's more physical.
Yes.
Because he doesn't really use tools. He just uses his hands.
Yeah.
You know, when he's training dogs.
Yes.
And I think that if anything, Caesar leans more heavy into respecting the dog for what they are.
Yes. Yeah.
And us accommodating the dog in our lives more than manipulating and changing the dog to fit a human lifestyle. I mean, that's been his thing since the beginning, is he's like, we're taking dogs and we're forcing them to live as humans, and we need to respect them as animals and as dogs. So in that particular instance of who, you know, I know you're talking about, what they want from that dog, he would 100% be like, well, you can't have it.
Yeah.
That's just not the way the dog is wired. They don't want that.
Yes. And we still have a very good relationship with this client, and we're still in talking about like helping them, but there is a little bit of a wall with, we're not going to get past this unless they can be consistent at home with their approach to things and make it the same every time. And I think they even wanted to, like, one thing she said to me is she wants to kiss the dog, and the dog hates physical affection.
Yeah.
And I think that's pretty unethical to force yourself upon a dog.
Yeah.
And we talk about consent all the time. And it's one thing if your dog likes scratches and pets and kisses, but it's another thing if your dog is clearly like, I don't like this.
Yeah.
And you're like, no, you have to like this because I like it.
Yeah, we can't change that.
Yeah. And it's unethical. It's not fair to the dog. We'll get in our like training paperwork, like before we get our clients, a lot of the times it's like, I want to bring my dog to dog parks. I want to bring the dog to daycare. I want to bring I want the dog to be out with guests. And then you read further and it's like, dog has attacked 7 dogs. Dog has bitten everybody in my family. Just like, we have to be realistic.
Yeah. And, you know, maybe it's an instance where once the dog begins training, you do see a drastic
and
change.
you can.
And you're like, okay, yeah, having your dog at family gatherings just got a lot more realistic. Or I don't think a dog park is ever a realistic goal for anybody, but, you know, like daycares. Sure, our daycare a structured daycare can work super well for a lot of different dogs. So, yeah, I mean, there's definitely like ways that training can change a lot of that stuff, but there are just natural ceilings that you're going to hit with certain dogs that you have to be realistic about.
Yeah. It's unfortunate, like, that you can't make everybody do exactly what you know that the dog is capable of, because you know the dog's capable of it with you. And it can be really frustrating to continue to have the client not do that and be like, I know your dog can do this. I want to make you happy. I want to make your dog happy, but we're not connecting right now.
Yeah.
And at that point, you have to kind of protect your peace and be like, you know, if you're willing to change, you know, hit me up. But, you know, this is the end of our road together. I can't help you anymore.
Yeah. And, you know, I think there's settings where you've truly like exhausted, you know, all of your options. And like, I feel confident with our clients here that like we truly do everything in our power to make it as simple, as easy, as accessible as possible,
supportive as we can.
Yeah. And to help in every aspect that we can. You know, we're not just like being like, oh, you don't want to do our convoluted 12-step process where you have to do all these ridiculous things to make this work. So see you later. You know, like we really try to give it our all on things. And so it's rare, you know, that we give to a point where we have to be like, call me when you finally do these things. I can really only think of like amongst everyone, I can really only think off the top of my head of maybe 3 clients where we've had to do that. And in those instances, a couple of those, to my knowledge, have actually done it. You know, they'll implement it and then reach back out and be like, it did work. I finally got sick enough of it that I did do it, you know, but it's definitely rare.
It is. Yeah, we don't get that a lot. It's just a couple incidences of it. And then over the past couple of months, or maybe within the last year, I've had 2 clients like that. And one of them was coming from a rescue situation. And the dog's life was bounced around so much that there was no consistency.
Yeah.
And this rescue desperately wanted to save this dog and rehome him out. But we had to be like, no. Yeah. It's not safe at this point. And that's unfortunate reality of the dog world.
Yeah. Yeah. The whole rescue situations like that are a whole nother, a whole nother topic of it. But
like, I like working with adoptable dogs, but when it's like, we've talked about this, like that dog that's like, oh, he has this rap sheet of all of these things he's done. It's like, yes, I can try my best effort, but this is a unicorn owner. And sometimes you find that, but most of the time you don't.
It's rare.
And we have to keep people safe. And if in America we had the same standards of like euthanizing dogs that had a bite record and not getting so emotionally wrapped up in their life, we would be a lot safer, and our dog practices would, or dog bites would go down a lot. Dog attacks would go down a lot.
Oh, yeah. No, it's getting to a point where it's a little ridiculous. I mean, and the resources that we spend on these dogs is crazy. Like the amount of money that I've seen go into some of these dogs. I'm like, what is all this for?
Yeah.
Like, this is to what end?
It's like a group of people that want this dog to be something that the dog is not, and it's just like another check mark, just to be like, I saved another dog. Where in reality you have to say like, I saved a human from not getting attacked by this dog.
Exactly.
And there are some rescues that we work with that are very good about like good head on their shoulders, and they're like, nope, we're not wasting our money on that dog. Like, I see you. I respect you.
Yep. Well, and I respect that they respect our opinions on that too. You know, on our ideas and guidance on like, this dog's not. I've seen a lot of red flags here. I don't think this is a good pick.
Sure.
But I mean, when it comes to working with a trainer, like if you're going to sign up with a trainer and you're going to spend your money and you're going to, you know, go to classes and do everything, like make sure that you like commit. You fully commit to it, whatever it is, you know, because if you half-ass it, you're not going to get the results that you're looking for. And maybe you fully commit and it doesn't work and you realize, okay, this is just bad technique, a bad trainer. I need to go find somebody else. And I think that's where looking at reviews and talking to references and things like that really comes in handy. That's why we put, you know, so much content out is like mainly to just continue to like essentially prove ourselves as like, we can help you.
And that does help. Like all of the people from a negative standpoint that are like, oh, they don't know what they're doing. This company is terrible. It's like, we're not.
And like, you can
We're doing
see
well.
it like in like, we don't just film videos where we sit here and talk. Like, yeah, we have these every once in a while. I'd say these honestly appeal more to like our current clients. Like I know a lot of my current clients that just listen to the podcast. I don't know a lot of, you know, who knows, maybe there are, but I think our content of lessons and like the active filming of like us interacting with clients and working with dogs and the before and afters and all that kind of stuff is what really attracts like the clientele and everything.
And the word of mouth, the testimonials, like I feel like do a damn good job, and we're the only company in the area that's going to offer above and beyond follow-up support. So we're getting you that success. And other companies are like, you get 2 follow-ups and then you have to pay me $800 for me to give you more advice. It's like, we're very transparent about like, I will help you until you decide that I can't help you anymore.
Yes. Yeah. Like, we're going to figure it out. We're not just going to be like,
Yeah, be like, oopsie. That will be $10,000 more.
Time's up. Yeah, that's not. And the reason we comfortably can be like, we'll help you until, you know, we don't need to anymore is because we believe in our techniques and our methods. That doesn't mean we're doing lessons for 2 years straight every week. You know, like it means that most of the dogs that come through here are, to us, very run-of-the-mill, easy, you know, quote unquote. Like, we know exactly how to fix and address the issues they're having, and it takes us a normal amount of follow-ups. You know, you do your send home if it's a board and train. You do maybe some follow-up lessons over the next 3 to 6 months, and then you maybe never even see them again because they're just happy. And we see them at daycare, you know, maybe they drop off for boarding, whatever. But like, they're in a really good place. With private lessons, rarely do I have to do more than the 10 or 12 sessions. that I have with people for a myriad of issues that they come in with. But, you know, we offer that because we're like, for those few and far between dogs where they do need, you know, maybe we do 15 sessions, maybe we do more follow-ups with the board and trains, whatever, that those are rare.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So,
and all the places like that do board and trains that are like, we need another week. We need another week. And they keep trying to sell you on another week. And you're like, what are you doing that you keep needing multiple weeks for? What isn't being addressed? Like, what's
and what
going
can't
on?
you do in front of the owner?
Yeah.
My thing with board and trains is like, if a company says that like your dog has to do a board and train, like with these specific issues, they have to do a board and train. And this is coming from like, and I don't think it's any secret. I think I've talked about it multiple times. Like as a trainer, I am a private lesson only person. My passion is not board and trains. I don't see anything wrong with them per se, but I think that if a training company, which we don't do here, but I think if a training company were to say like, oh, you have to do a board and train, like private lessons won't work, whatever. It's a flat out lie. What do you have to do to that dog in private that you can't do in front of the owner?
Yeah. Yeah.
And whether that's because you don't have the skill set or the tact or the people skills to be able to explain hard moments in front of the owner, or because you're truly doing something nefarious behind the scenes that you can't fairly explain to the owner, to me it's all a red flag. You know, when people sign up for training, we don't really steer them one way or the other. We're like, we literally only have two options. You could do the private session package, that's 10 sessions. If you have a puppy, it's 12, or you can do a 4-week board and train with a year of follow-up. That's it. And then they get to pick. And I think sometimes people want us to pick for them, but we're like, no, I mean, that's either one is going to work and they're going to be great.
It depends on, like, I personally really like board and trains, and I do private lessons as well from time to time, and I used to do them all the time, but my passion is in board and train because I feel like I can take the time to really get to know the dog, and it's not that you can't do that in private lessons, it's just a different way of doing it, and like that's a skill that I'm still building on. It's like I want to give them what they want, but I like to have like my time and my relationship with the dog and then show them the end product.
Yeah.
Where in private lessons, you're working every week with them.
Yep.
And both our board and training and our private lessons will accomplish the same thing.
Yeah.
But just how we get about that.
It's just a different journey to get there, but you'll get the same results. And I think the benefit to each program is just so personal and independent depending on the dog and the clients and what their lifestyles are like.
Yes, and the time that they have.
If any company is trying to steer you in one direction over the other, that would be a red flag to me.
Or like you don't hear from them the entire time your dog is in the board and train. And then they're like $700 another week. Well, you're like, I need to know what's going on.
Yeah. Like what are the struggles? Flag. What's the issues? Like what's happening? We went down a rabbit trail. Where are we at now?
I don't know. We talked about getting, I don't know.
I mean, I still, like I said, I think that it's important that whatever training you decide to commit to, like you fully commit to it and you trust your trainer.
And you're happy with it. You gotta be happy with it too. And things need to be explained to you where nobody's telling you what to do. They're explaining why they're doing it. And it makes sense. And you're like, oh, okay. Yeah. And if you're like, huh? Like, why is my dog have to do a board and train over private lessons?
Yeah.
You can question things.
Dog training is a lot of common sense. And I always tell people, I'm like, if it sounds weird and it doesn't make sense, then it's probably wrong. Like it's a lot of common sense. Like if somebody's telling you that you can't punish your dog for biting things that it shouldn't, that doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Or it doesn't make sense. There's nothing in the animal kingdom that's positive only all the time.
No. What's confusing, like on another note, off topic, is like positive only force free people think like the dog has to offer behaviors and then you can't correct them or force them into doing it. It's all offered. And it's like the dog is consenting, like, I want to sit.
Yeah.
Like,
weird. Weird.
It doesn't work out.
No.
In the long run.
It doesn't work. Like, you can, in very controlled settings, like free shaping is so fun. I did that a lot with Snoop when he was younger. Like, there's definite ways that you can, you know, create and shape behaviors through using a lot of just reinforcement. But like, you'll never convince me that that will be effective in a real life practical situation.
Yeah. And they'll be like, don't go outside to the park. Are you kidding me? You want your dog to sit outside at the park?
Yeah.
And it's just like, yes, I do want my dog to sit outside in the park, and I want to be able to control her behavior when she's there so she can do more with me and she doesn't have to sit at home in a crate and I feel guilty and shitty. It's like, I can do almost anything with my dog within reason and then what's fair to her because of her training.
Yeah. And like, I mean, I have clients with, if you remember Kona, that lab that was being told, well, you just can't take her outside. You can't turn on the TV. You have to move. You can't, you know, all these ridiculous things. We still have a couple sessions just pocketed because we got the dog doing so well before we even finished the 10 sessions that she was like, I want to save those as like maybe I need them at some point, you know, if I fall off the wagon. But like, things are going so ridiculously well that she feels so confident just existing with the dog on her own for a bit and just continuing with what we've done, that we're not even like, oh, help me, you know, like, she's in such a good spot. I just, you know, I've been working with a dog that did a board and train with another company today or last week. We did like a modified program for her because obedience, you know, was already taught. They were just really still struggling with the behavioral things. They didn't feel like they had a clear plan on what they were supposed to do to address it. The dog was still behaving terribly out in public and things like that. And so we did a modified program of 5 sessions. We've done 3 sessions. So over the course of 2 weeks, right? Because you have your first session a week, second a week, third one. And now with our last 2 sessions, we're waiting on them because things are already going so well. And she's like, I want the weather to break a little bit. I want us to, like, you know, we've gone to stores with this dog. We've gone to like areas that they were like, we've never been able to do this with this dog before. And so guess what did that? 100. I truly, it's like, that's what did it, guys. 100.
Yeah.
You know? And so you're taking a dog who went through a board and train, follow-up sessions, group classes, like all of this stuff.
And still they couldn't get success.
They didn't get success.
Because the company, I think, like, would not go that high.
Yeah, they wouldn't. Well, they would go that high, but only after they've tried 20 and then 30 and then 40 and then 50.
The dog's already like frustrated.
Oh, 100%. If you're the climbing the numbers,
that's so
while
irritating.
the dog is in a reactive state, the absolute worst thing that you can do. Do not do that. Do not do that. If the dog is already in a reactive state and you're like, let me try 20. Now let me try 30. Now let me try 40. You are just poking the bear. All you're going to do is end up with a dog who redirects on you and bites you. That's the only thing you're going to get out of that situation. You have to shut it down, guys. You have to have a high, convincing enough level to enforce the behavior that you're looking for. For us, it was maybe it's a down. Maybe it's a walking position. Whatever. There was also a lot of micromanaging going. As hilarious as it was, there was not a lot of firm consequences, but so many rules. There were so many rules with very low consequences. The way that I function with reactive dogs is my rules are so few, but my consequences are very firm. So when I take you for a walk, you get a pretty wide berth to work with. I'm only going to enforce if you get so far ahead of me that your butt passes me.
Yeah.
If you cut me off because you dart in front of me, or you egregiously pull me out to the side. Those are my 3 rules. Beyond that, you can do whatever the hell you want. I don't care. You can sniff the ground. You can stare off into the abyss. You don't have to look at me. You don't have to give me attention. You don't have to do any of that. I just need you to follow those 3 rules. And instead of micromanaging the dog on the walk over just its position, and then, oh my gosh, a dog is coming. We got to shorten our leash, and we got to shove treats in his face, and we got to, let's tap him on a 20. Let's do all this. Like, just have it at 100. Wait for the dog to break the position, give him a nice firm correction, and then don't have to do it again.
Yeah. And the point of correcting is that you don't have to chase the rest of your life with corrections.
Yes.
And, start to see little to no success. And your dog, if the level is motivating, will stop the behavior that it's doing. It's like having a 0 tolerance policy for those behaviors.
Yep.
And just setting out and saying, I'm totally committed to addressing this behavior. And if it's overwhelming for you, pick one thing at a time and chip away at it and start to see the success. Allow the first thing you start to correct for to kind of get better, and then start correcting for something else that you don't like.
Yep. And in a situation like that too, it's so cool to see the change in the owner. Because I mean, that first lesson, they show up, they're defeated. They feel hopeless. They've already expended so much money and so much time and energy to feel like it's not working.
Yeah.
And they feel like their dog is just never going to get better.
Yeah.
And so that first week, you're really kind of like, you're having to convince them that, like, trust me, this is not as bad as you think it is. This is going to be a very solvable issue. Just do X, Y, and Z this week. Right. And then it's so fun to see them come back the next week, and there's just like this spark in them where not everything is perfect, but they're like, this is like getting somewhere. Like something is finally working.
Yes. And
like the amount of like loyalty you can get from somebody by just giving them advice that works is you can't create that or manufacture that in any other way. And the rapport that you get from that, and then you build on it the next time, and then you get to where I am, where we've done 3 sessions, and we talked today because it's a huge, massive negative degree weather winter storm out there, and she's like, I think I just want to like wait until the storm breaks and we can go to the park, and we can do more things. She's like, because we feel really good about where we're at with everything. Like, that means so much to me that like I could get them to a really good spot where they're not so sad,
like waiting at the edge of their seat until their next lesson because they're having all these issues. We urge people to reach out if they're having any issues or at the start of an issue rather than waiting the whole week. And it is beautiful to be able to get people to that point. Like, particularly, when they've gotten to that point when they like get all their dog gear on. Like the first lesson, they come and they don't have treats. They forgot the treats. They don't have the right leash. And by that, like, third lesson, they have a treat pouch. They have pet corrector. They have all the gear, and they're completely committed.
And they're excited.
Yeah,
they're excited because they're like, this works.
And they like training. Like, they like the hour that they spend with us, or the 3-hour sent homes. Yeah. And we enjoy them too.
Yeah. And it's always fun when I like go on field trips with people, and we'll be walking around and they'll be like, oh, there's a dog, let's go that way. When and they'll even point it out. They'll be like, it's so weird that like I see triggers, or what used to be a trigger, and I like want to face them like head on rather than avoid. I'd see a dog and I'd get stressed and anxious, and I turn around and I try to get out, and all this stuff. And now they're in a mindset where they're like, I feel empowered that like I can actually influence what my dog is going to do and be in control of it.
Your dog deserves the version of you that's going to hold the dog accountable for the best version of themselves. So ultimately you can go to the park and you can go to the trails with them and do things like shopping centers and have them be well behaved. Like, it's such a game changer.
Yeah, it's very fun. And I think that and to kind of go back to our original point, like, we can only help you as much as you're willing to let us help you. And we get that, you know, in the beginning, you don't know us, you know what I mean? And you're really having to take us at our word, but we've built up enough credibility, I think, with reviews and with, you know, our clientele and stuff like that, that I think most of the clients we do get at this point have already like bought in. Like they're like, this is going to work.
Yeah.
I know it's going to work.
Yeah.
It's worked for every other dog that's come through here. And, you know, all of the dogs that I've seen that have had the same issues as my dog, you know.
Yeah. And like from a trainer standpoint, like I wouldn't be at this company if I didn't feel like the company was doing the best training possible and that we were getting the results that we love to get. And it's just so satisfactory to like help a client that's coming in tears to like feeling confident and smiling and being able to do things with their dogs again. It's just like ultimately such a good career to have.
Yeah. And it's like, it's a very, like, the environment here that we try to cultivate is very open-minded and very, like, growth-focused. So, you know, we're not set in our ways on, like, you know, we're not going to ever consider any other techniques or options or things like that. Like, we just feel very confident in what we do now is working. And then, you know, if we have dogs that come along that challenge that a little bit and force us to think outside of the box and do other things, like, we're more than happy to adapt, you know, and figure out other options if we need to.
Yeah.
And that's not, you know, I like that it's very, there's not restrictions in that way. We're very much if it works, it works. You know what I mean? Like the proof is in the pudding. Like if you're seeing the results that you want, and maybe it's not something we traditionally do, if it works, it works.
If
I don't
it's not
care.
broken, you don't have to fix it.
Yeah, exactly.
So.
What else? Is there anything else we can touch on? Our next week, our podcast next week, we're going to talk about holiday stuff, guys.
Yeah.
So stay tuned for that.
Your New Year's Eve fireworks, your Christmas chicken, you know.
Do people eat chicken at Christmas?
I don't know. I made a chicken,
Probably.
Julia Child chicken last year.
How was that?
Not good. It took a
Was
lot
it the
of work.
recipe or was it you?
Probably both. It just took, it was like slaving over a hot stove for hours, and I just didn't enjoy that.
That's not
and
your
then
vibe.
the chicken wasn't like incredible for all that work.
Oh man, we were always a ham family for Christmas. We did the turkey, you know, for Thanksgiving, and then ham for Christmas.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, I like a good ham.
Yeah, I like a good Spam. Does anybody like Spam? It's delicious.
I tried to eat like, oh gosh, Spam that was like not sauteed, but fried, not fried. You just put it in a skillet and you cook it.
Yeah,
Whatever that's called.
yeah.
It was okay.
I love it.
I
think
love
it's
a good
delicious.
fried bologna sandwich.
Yeah, I don't like bologna that much, but Spam.
Have you ever made Snoop Dogg's fried bologna sandwich
I
recipe?
haven't.
He has one, and it's really good. You take 3 slices of bologna, and you fry them, okay? And then you have to use Kraft singles specifically, okay? And you melt those on top of the fried bologna at that point, and then you stack them all on top of each other. You toast your bread. Oh, I'm sorry. I skipped a step. Before you put the fried bologna in, you put butter in, and you basically like grill your bread in the pan. Okay, to get it nice and toasty.
Yep.
And then you put mustard on the, follow me on this. You put mustard on the bread, and then you put your fried bologna and your cheese on there. You can also eat it with a side of barbecue chips. Oh,
That
it's
sounds really
so good. It's really good.
You know, maybe I'll do that for Christmas dinner instead of my chicken.
Give everyone fried bologna sandwiches.
Yeah. But yeah, next week we'll talk about the holidays, particularly maybe when like family or friends want to bring their dogs over.
Oh man. Spoiler alert. A lot of my advice is going to be you can kennel your dog for Christmas.
Yes. Sorry.
For your family gatherings, they can go in a kennel. They don't need to be out.
Yeah.
If you want them out, I'll talk to you about how to have them out. But I don't know. In my opinion, if having massive groups of people at your house is a once or twice a year occasion, just put your dog away.
Yeah. Yeah, so you don't have to, like, you deserve to enjoy your holiday without, like, having to call your vet at 2 a.m. or, you know,
Because
fighting
Fluffy
with your
ate
family.
some rib bones or something.
Yeah.
We don't need that.
Yeah. It happens, though. It happened to me.
But yeah, we'll get more into that next week.
Yes.
But thanks for joining us today, guys.
Yes, yeah.
Cool. See you next time.
See you next time.